I'm started.
Okay. Hey everybody. It's great to see you. I'm very excited to be part of the Adulting 101 series, and my topic is something very near and dear to my heart, and that is cooking. So today I just want to start getting you used to being comfortable in the kitchen, and then the next time that we get together, maybe we can actually learn how to cook a specific dish. It's important to learn to cook for obvious reasons. We need it for nourishment to live, and so you need to be self-sufficient in that. But also think of it from this perspective. Every time you make a meal, you create an opportunity for community. And community is incredibly important for us to live good Christian lives. So think about like when if you could make a meal and you sit around the table with your friends or family and you just sit and listen to people talk and just create that community feeling. Or think about a ministry. Here at St. Luke's, we have the room at the inn. And what you could do there, once you become comfortable in the kitchen, you could go and help them cook, and then help the people cook, and then serve it to the homeless people, and then you can sit and chat with them and have conversation with them, which is something they definitely crave. Or maybe in your personal life, you end up with a situation where your neighbor's not feeling great and you want to help them. So maybe make them some good chicken soup. Or maybe your best friend is going through a really rough patch and needs to talk. Make a meal, go over there, and it just creates a perfect atmosphere for some good conversation. So let's get started. So in order to follow a recipe, there's certain things that you need to know. And so I'm just going to teach you the basics so that when you go online, if you decide you want to make something and you go online and you find a recipe, then then you know some of the basic terms and you can feel confident about trying to follow a recipe. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is terms. So it's important to understand how the oven works. So there are there are three different major terms for the oven. There's bake, broil, and roast. And so when you bake something in the oven, in general, you're putting it on 325, 350 degrees, and it's usually baking for like 45 minutes, an hour, and you've got heat coming both from the top of the oven and the bottom of the oven. And that is baking. And usually it's a situation where the inside of something is a little liquidy, and you're trying to solidify that. So think about baking a cake, right? The second thing is roasting, and it's very similar because you have the heat coming from the top and the bottom, but usually that's done at a higher heat, right around 425 or 450, and usually a little bit of a shorter time. And roasting is a great way to do vegetables. Sometimes you know you need to eat more vegetables, right? And so that's a great way to make some vegetables. So let's just take those little baby carrots that you get at the grocery store. You can throw them in a baking casserole, put a little bit of olive oil on there, put it in a 425 oven or 450 oven, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes, pull it out, throw a little bit of butter on there, maybe some cinnamon, and you've got a great side dish of very healthy baby carrots, cooked baby carrots. So that's roasting. And then the last thing is broiling, and that's when just the top heating element heats up. And generally you're using that to brown things. And so when you broil something, it's usually quick. You need to keep an eye on it, because if you broil something, you could easily burn it. So you got to just kind of keep an eye on that broil. So the other kind of terms is more towards the top of the oven. So one is, obviously know what boiling is, right? You bring something to a boil and there's a lot of bubbles, big bubbles. To simmer it, you'll then turn it down and you keep it simmering, very little baby bubbles. at the bottom, you know, baby bubbles in the liquid. And usually you're gonna simmer for a while to kind of blend all of the flavors together, and you can put a top on it, and that's a great way to kind of just get some extra taste out of whatever sauce or whatever it is that you're making. Then there is pan frying, and usually that's in a pan like this, usually just a little bit of oil, and you put in there, and maybe you want to pan fry some green beans, so you just throw a little bit of olive oil in there, turn the skillet on, or turn the eye on, and just kind of stir it around, and you pan fry it. You can pan fry meat, pieces of meat, maybe sometimes you'll pan fry shrimp, things like that. And then deep fry is a little different. That's when you have a ton of oil, and you think about French fries, right? That's deep frying. It's not really good for you, and I don't suggest that you try to do that until you've really started cooking a lot, because it can get a little dicey and can burn yourself. So anyway, so that's that. So kind of going back to here, the types of pots and pans. So this is a saucepan. So when they say get a saucepan out, this is what they're talking about. They come in all different sizes. This is a medium-sized saucepan, but my kid never knew what a saucepan was. They don't call it a pot in a recipe. They call it a saucepan. This is a frying pan or a skillet. Okay, so people don't realize that that's what that is. That's a skillet or a frying pan. This is my favorite. It is a cast iron skillet. Now, you don't need to have one of these. This is just because I love cooking, and so I have it. But once you start loving cooking, then you need to get one of these. But they're a cast iron skillet. The reason is because it gets hot and is good conduction of heat. And you can maybe like pan fry something on the top of the stove and then throw it in the oven to finish it off. It's a great tool. This is a Dutch oven. It's ceramic. And you'll see it in a lot of recipes. It's usually used for roasting, so you might like throw a chicken in there with some vegetables and throw it in the oven and roast something. We make barbecue. I think a lot of you have had my barbecue before. This is what I make it in. You use this for a lot of different things. Again, you don't have to have this. I'd say these two are the most important things to have, the skillet and the saucepan. Okay. So that's easy enough, right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about knife skills. And this is an important part, because I think that, I know that my son in particular, who is a teen, that makes him the most nervous in the kitchen. And it shouldn't. It's actually not that hard, but I get why it makes you nervous. It can be dangerous, but I think you'll learn through this exercise that it's actually not so bad. So the first thing that I want to say is we're going to talk a little bit about sanitation when you're cooking. So generally I have out two cutting boards, and normally I like these plastic ones because they can go in the dishwasher. If you don't have a dishwasher, you can scrub it real hard, and then that way they stay sanitized when you can do that. And generally, I like to I always have one that I use for vegetables, and then one that I might use for raw meat. And so, like, if I'm cooking my raw meat on this, I cook it and I finish with my raw meat, I'm gonna rinse it off and throw it immediately into the dishwasher and get that nice and clean. You don't want to ever have raw meat on this and then, you know, cut a carrot. I mean, like, don't do that. That's cross-contamination. So I always have two. Now, let's talk about the knives themselves. This is an important knife to probably have. It's called a chef's knife, and you can just sort of see how it looks here. It's just got a sharp blade there, and so that's a chef's knife. That's what I use 80% of the time. This is a serrated knife, and you can kind of see how the edges are serrated. You see that? It's usually sharper than you think that it is, so be careful with this. This is great for anything that's got a skin on it. For example, I cut my tomatoes with something like this. You can also cut bread with this. It's also a good thing to use to cut meats, okay? So, those are the two different kind of main kind of knives. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to cut something. So this is a red pepper. So the first thing that you should do when you're getting ready to do some cutting is a little trick. You put down a dish towel of some sort and you put your cutting board on top of it. This helps it so that it doesn't move while you're cutting. See, this one is going to slide around, right? So you don't want that to slide around because then you're going to hurt yourself. So this is a good way to sort of stabilize your cutting board. If your cutting board doesn't have sometimes they have these little things, but they always fall off, so this is a good way. Okay, so we're gonna cut a red pepper. So a red pepper is sort of round, right? Anything that's round, an onion, whatever, you always want to cut it in half first because it's too dangerous to cut something that's not lying flat. So you want to lie it flat. So you cut it in half just like that, okay? Now, normally I would clean this out, but we're just doing this for the purposes of demonstration. So there are 3 things I'm going to teach you how to do that you might see in your recipe that you pull. It's either going to say slice or chop or dice and mince. Those are your things. So slicing is easy. So all you do is you just kind of get your little cut right there, and you just kind of want to put this front piece down and just kind of like this. Now, this is not the best knife for this after I told you what kind of knife to use, but see, you want to just kind of move it back and forth and just kind of, this is the motion you're going for, okay? All right, so that's a slice, okay? Now, let's say that you need to dice something. So it's either dice or chop. Now, this is a great way to dice something, is you just kind of cut these little edges, kind of go in the opposite direction like this, right? This would work better with an onion, but this is what I had available. And then you just kind of cut it like this. See? That's going to make little diced red peppers, okay? And they all will be somewhat similar in size. So you just kind of want to, do it like this, just a bunch of little slices this way, and then you just kind of can go like this, right? Now we need to mince. So mince means that it gets really little. So just go like this. There's no magic to it. You just go like this. So you're just gonna use, this is the motion that you're almost always trying to use. This up and down motion is the fastest and easiest way to cut something. And once you get good at cutting, your life is so much easier when it comes to cooking, because it just lessens the amount of time to do anything. So, when you start getting real small here, then you just put your hand here and you just dice it, just like, or mince it, just like that. Just keep on going, okay? So that is cutting. So let's just talk about a few requirements that you might want to have when you get out on your own in your kitchen, so that you're always sort of ready to cook some things. So here's some outside of the cutting boards. We talked about the pots and pans and the knives. This is a set of tongs, and that I love these. They're just easy to help, flip. You can pick up pasta with them, whatever. They're great. Tongs are a good investment. These are like $3. They're nice. You can get them for inexpensive. A wooden spoon. A wooden spoon is good for the obvious of just kind of stirring and things. And the great thing about a wooden spoon is if you have non-stick pan, which I actually like. I know that real chefs don't use this kind. They use the kind that the kind without the coating. But I like this. It's just a little easier to cook on, and I can use this without scratching the bottom of my pan. So that's the reason I like a wooden spoon. And then this is a spatula, and this is, my mom used to use a spatula all the time because she did not want to waste one morsel of food. And so she would use this to get every little last bit out of the pot or whatever it was she was cooking. So you can use it to stir, and then you're going to use it to get every little morsel out of whatever the bowl or whatever it is that you're cooking. So that is that. Now, from a food perspective, you need to always have a little bit of oil in your pantry. Most people like olive oil because it, you know, it's better for you than the other oils. I will say if you're doing any kind of high heat work, you're really going to rather have something like a vegetable oil or a canola oil because it works better at high heats, But olive oil is really great. You heard me say I just kind of put it on vegetables or in the bottom of a pan if I'm doing medium heat. And then we also use olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, to make things like salad dressings, different things like that. So it's great raw. So if you're not using it, you need an oil that you're not using to cook, but for raw purposes, like salad dressing, olive oil is the best. So have some oils, maybe a little bit of vegetable oil or canola oil and some olive oil. Always have salt and pepper and sugar and flour, and you're gonna learn as you start cooking what you like as far as spices are concerned. Being Italian, I have to have always in my pantry parsley, oregano, and basil. Just do. And it's great to get those things fresh as well, but sometimes in the wintertime it's hard to find, so you can get the dried for the wintertime. So the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is meal planning. And it's important that you plan meals when you start getting on your own, because you want to make sure that you always have enough in your home to have something reasonably healthy to eat. And you're not, because the hardest thing about cooking is knowing what to have. And so if you plan for it, then after a long day at school or work or whatever, then you can just look at your plan and say, oh yeah, these are my 3 options for tonight. And you have all your ingredients. So you want to plan your meal, the beginning of your meals, the beginning of every week for the coming week. And write them down. I write mine down in a little book. This is where I keep, you can see here, this is where I have what we're going to have this week. And that way, when I am finished with work and I'm exhausted, I just look in here and I know today we'll have pork tacos and asparagus. That's what I'm going to make. So, so have that, you know, at all times. Always know what you're going to cook. And what you want to do is think about when you're coming up with what to make. You will always want your plate to be very colorful, and that's the best way to ensure that you're cooking healthy meals, is because the more colorful it is, the better the food generally is for you. So make a game out of it. Try to get as many colors as you possibly can on any given plate, so that you can get as many fruits and vegetables and stuff into your system. And recognize that when you go to the grocery store, being on the perimeter of the grocery store is where you need to spend the majority of your time and your money. The interior is all the processed foods and the things that are generally pre-made, not as good for you. Go around the perimeter. I spend 90% of my time and money in the produce department. So then you have your meats and you have, you know, your eggs and your milk and all of that kind of stuff. And when you're planning your meals for the week, think about how you can continually use the same ingredients. For example, if one of your recipes has spinach in it, you're probably not going to use the whole thing of spinach. So try to think of what else you might use the spinach for that week, so you don't throw anything out at the end of the week. So you want to try to be real cognizant about using all of your ingredients during the week, so that you don't have to throw anything out. You don't have a lot of waste, because we don't want to be wasteful. That is kind of my ideas for healthy eating. Just to give you maybe some ideas on how to add color and how to be healthy. Think about, maybe for breakfast, so let's just plan a day. You know you're going to be home for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay? So maybe for breakfast, you want eggs. Well, eggs are yellow, and that's good, but we need another color in there, right? So maybe we buy some spinach, and we chop it up, and at the end of the scrambling of the eggs, you're going to scramble your eggs slow and low. Always remember that when you're cooking eggs, slow and low. Low temperature, slow as you can. At the end, when they're about ready, you throw in a handful of spinach, and there you have some green on your plate. Okay, and then for lunch, now you got some spinach left over. Why don't you make a spinach salad with maybe some strawberries, and maybe instead of croutons, you use seeds or nuts. Those are so much better for you. And don't use iceberg lettuce, use your spinach. That's a good thing to use. It's so much better for you. Throw the nuts, some strawberries, maybe a little bit of feta cheese, and maybe some chicken, and get some poppy seed dressing, and there you have it. It's a great lunch. And then maybe for dinner, you want to have a piece of fish. Okay, so you might pan fry some fish on the stove, and then throw in some asparagus into the oven. Make a sweet potato, bake a sweet potato. You can bake a sweet potato either in your oven or in the microwave if you don't have enough time. And then maybe another fun way to get a little bit of color on your plate with that is make a salsa. And you can make a salsa with anything. You can make it with peaches, you can make it with pineapple, you can make it with tomatoes, and just dice it up. Throw a little olive oil and balsamic vinegar in there, and when you get the fish out, or chicken, or whatever meat it is, you can potentially just throw a little bit of that on there, and now you've got a really colorful plate with your sweet potato, your asparagus, your salsa, and then some protein. So that's some ideas for you. So I have a little challenge for you guys, and that is to look at the week ahead of you and commit to either helping your mom and dad in the kitchen to make at least one meal, or making a meal for your family. Now, one thing that's important to learn is how to help. My boys come into the kitchen, and it drives me crazy. They are trying to do the right thing to help me, but sometimes they just sort of stand there and they don't know what to do, and they want to wait on me to tell them what to do. But now they have learned through the years exactly what to do. There's a term, it's a French term, it's called mise en place, and basically what that means is prepare everything before you start cooking. And so you can do the mise en place for them. So look at the recipe. If it tells you you need to chop an onion for them. Pull out all of the various ingredients, the spices, whatever it is, and have it ready, measured out or whatever, so that when you go to the oven or the stovetop, you can help them, because you've done all the mise en place for them. So I strongly suggest that you try to do that this week, and I think your parents will be happy for it, and it will create lots of community and goodwill with your parents and your family. And I will see you next time.